Hey, this is Tiger. Welcome to my stream. Even if it is Thursday night, midweek, and we are actually competing with an official DTG live stream, what I did not reckon. What I did not reckon with actually. CD Radar, so great, never missed. He says, yes, you never missed me, and that is so great that I have you guys. AJ cannot join us today, unfortunately, so you will have to be happy with me. And well, yeah, actually there are some things that happened that, yeah, at least I can be happy about. I hope we all can be happy about. We got good evening, AJ. Well, she can be here as well. Vectron with ATB. Whoa, yes, the Vectron speaks ATB now. And it actually worked. I checked it out in the afternoon. Juniper, hey, unexpected stream. Came on exactly the right night when I really needed it. That's so great to hear. Well, I have to disclose something, and AJ subscribed to tier 1. They've subscribed for 20 months. AJ, this is so crazy. Thank you so much for the support, ongoing and all the time. Yeah, well, I have to disclose I am a Dovetail ambassador now. Yesterday, I joined the club, and yeah, that's that. Wee-hee. So, I'm getting some DLCs for free, but nevertheless, everything I say and do on my channel here is still my own responsibility, my own opinion, my own discretion, so nobody tells me what to say, what to do. Congratulations, Tiger, says AJ, thank you so much. Yeah, that is one thing, so I have to turn on especially my disclaimer. Juniper is well deserved. Thank you so much, and actually feels good. And well, I'm still trying to find my way around in that program, and yeah, me being one day ambassador, and the problem that we talked about in the last video with the scoring issue, if the speed that is demanded by the safety system is lower than the actual speed limit, we get docked for speeding. It was fixed. Probably not because I'm an ambassador now, but it actually got fixed. I checked it out. We are no longer getting docked when we are slowing down to our speed. At least it worked in ATB. Since it is a core issue, I'm quite confident that it will work in TSW, ATC, and there might be other safety systems that require you to slow down to a certain speed as well. We will check this out. We will keep an eye on that, and I'm really happy that things like this actually got fixed. So many good news. Yeah, and it was hidden in the full changelog. I actually went through the changelog and thought, what is that exactly what you've been talking about last week? So, Donut Diplomat unfortunately is not here because he was the one asking that question. And yeah, what I did not do is prepare a service marker for the Vectron service, because I forgot, and I actually did not plan on running the Vectron, but since the Vectron now speaks ATB, there is no way not to do it. So let's just quickly fix it. Let's just punch it in by hand. This is the 3094 Amersfoort 20 Amersfoort to Onnen Depot, starting at 1521. Let's see if it works. So what does not work here? No, I think it works. Yes. CD radar, this is great, and a slivery and online hub for Vectron. And Amersfoort is your home city, Juniper. That is great. Unfortunately, we don't have it in the DLC, but at least the train starts there. Well, let's jump into our red Vectron from Fulda, Frankfurt. And let's see how we can make it run on ATV. Many cargo trains every day I get to watch. It sounds like it. So there is a big yard then in Amersfoort. Ronnie, yes, more explaining while virtually flying planes. Guten Abend. So nice to have you. While virtually flying planes. And here we are. On our Vectron. Look at this. We are on our Vectron. We have to wait for one moment. The signal is still at red. Key in. Brakes are cut off. We will see that later. And then where is the switch for the ATB? It's actually the PZB switch. It is now captioned PZB plus ATB. The CIFA, the LCB we don't need, but let's switch it on anyway in case the system wants it. And then, how do we make it run ATB? We cannot see it here. What does it show us? PZB, LZB, PZB. So how do we get it to run on ATB? We've got to switch it to Dodge country settings. What is also good because we are not getting 15k volts from our overhead catenary, but only 1.5k volts. And one thing that is important to know at this point, we cannot switch it. And why can we not switch it? Because the panto is up. So to make it possible to get the panto down, lower here, I don't want to send, only lower it. Open the MCB rookie numbers for the 1.5k. Well, we are also having rookie numbers with 15. Let's have 25 like on the northeast corridor. Okay, with the panto down, we can actually switch this thing. Usually, if I did not forget anything else. And then we're pressing the E key, we actually switched it to Dutch. And at the same time we heard the Gongslag. And now we are in ATB. Here it says ATB Eerste Generatie. Obviously we are running under an ETCS screen that gives us the operating mode for ETCS SN, System National, National Systems. Probably we want our pantograph back, otherwise we will have trouble getting some juice out of the catenary. And then close main circuit breaker. One thing I've never realized before is that we can now see the status of our brakes here in a very nice thing. So let's see if we can. We are already clear to go. We have a yellow signal turning to green, so we are already clear to go. Not using the AFP for today. Let's see if we can just release the brakes. Does not look it. This is sometimes. What did we forget to do? Why do our brakes not release? Indirekte aufgesperrt, direkte Bremse gelöst, cut in, yeah. This is always confusing with the cut in. Sometimes you have to use it like a USB check. It only fits with the third possibility. And now we are actually releasing. And we're getting our train on the move. It's really a short train. Well, we need a Vectron to pull this cut of tank cars towards. If the button is on, brake is disabled. Yeah, but maybe I'm always confusing myself with this, because I think I just cut it in and then it is cut out anyway. So, all the nice indicators that we have talked about last week, and we are running under yellow. And now it actually makes sense to use the Vectron here, because now we have the ATB running. I like how it looks with third panto up, just like they run here on DC. We're limited to 60 at this signal here. This is how it looks. There's such a short train. If I activate the Roadrunner, there's almost no distance to go. It looks like there are even empty cars. So this is a bit OP with our Vectron here. One thing I thought that I realized when I was running this route on the Sprinter Nieuwe Generatie was that for some reason, oh no, now I'm speeding almost. And for some reason the signal upgraded too early in this 120 section before we get to Meppel. So, what's the speed limit for freight trains in the Netherlands? Eternal Abyss, hey yo, it's so nice to see you on my chat. On my first stream as an ambassador. The game does not really impose a speed limit to us. I think the 140 for a freight train is a bit fast, actually. What is wrong? Why did we only get 35? So we did end up getting it, yes. So why are we not getting proper points? We're only getting 35, as if our safety systems are not on. Why is that? Or does it want the wipers? That doesn't make sense. It's not the wipers. That's insulated. What happens then? Normal. Or does it want us to use the AFB to give us full points? That would be weird a bit.
AFB.
Alright, doesn't help. Some weird high beam rule like in Österreich. I think 100, but maybe higher on a dedicated cargo line between Betuwe line between Rotterdam Harbor and Emmerich. Well, at least we're not between Rotterdam Harbor and Emmerich, so feel is so much is for sure, I guess. I read a text, but that was 20 years old, and we had a limit of 80 for freight trains on a certain line. But I highly doubt that it is faster than 120 at any rate. Or maybe the high beams. Let's see if it wants high beams. Still not getting. Our full points here. If I even with the speed punched in the AFB, we are only getting points as if we're not using safety systems. Well, but since I turned on the wipers, I got the rain on top of it. So DTG probably forgot this. Well, I know where to raise it now. Maybe somebody knows. Usually if you forget to turn on something safety system wise, then shift return and control return does the trick. Okay, let's run this service in so far as we get to the 120 limit, and let's see whether the signal improves correctly at the end of this section or not. And then let's skip the Vectron for a bit and let's go to what we are actually here for to do. Talk about the Verbeterde Versie. Donut Diplomat, hello, a bit late, my bad. Not a problem at all. But did you hear already? They fixed the problem that you addressed in my last stream. We're no longer getting docked for adjusting to the speed that the ATB is asking us to adjust to. The Vectron now runs ATB, but it seems that we're having a little problem with the scoring system. Does not seem to recognize that all the safety systems are on. He noticed already, that's great. Isn't that great that things are actually getting fixed? Let's see if we can actually do 120. It feels great when someone is actually listening to us, says Donut Diplomat. Yeah, that's true. It was probably not because they listened to us, but someone else noticed this problem, and it is at any rate it is fixed. And CD Reader says, I have to admit that this ATB update to Vectron came much sooner than I expected. Good job, DTG. Keep it up. Yes. Same here. I did not expect it to come that early. I did not expect it to come in the afternoon before my stream. Here is the reduction to 120. So the signals in the cap degrade to 13 because we don't have a 12. And now let's see at what point the signals are upgrading again. Now we just passed the Snelheidsport for the 12. But it could have been when the DLC itself was released. Well, sometimes it's nice to hold a little something back. Then you have the joy of something being released twice. And G6 will not get anything. Yeah, okay. The G6 is a bit like holding the place for a proper Dutch shunter. Don't know if there is a G6 version with ATB. Probably somewhere, some place. Okay. Now we should get an increase to green. This seemed to work as intended. For us running with 120, it is probably not so important. Okay. But at this point, say bye-bye to the Vectron. And we will look at the Verbeterde Versie. And for that we go to Groningen. In the free roam, I think, so that nothing else can distract us. And then check out what the Verbeterde Versie actually does. No, not timetable, I wanted the free roam in Groningen. Light clouds. So, Groningen station. In this direction are our departure signals, probably. We're starting from a bay platform, and what we can see here is those funny little magnets, or yeah, probably not really magnets, but as much magnets as PZB magnets are magnets, like some resonance coils. Those things here, yellow, slanted to the outside, and can't read what is on them. And if we're going up to a red signal, we can see that there is one, and we have to run a bit. Then there is a second, then there is a third in a much smaller distance, and then there is the red signal. And this is what the Verbeterde Versie consists of in terms of trackside equipment. You can see that most lines are fitted with those thingies in both directions, coming in and going out, because also the buffer blocks are protected. If we spawn our SNG, also I don't know if you guys remember when I said that the combined brake and throttle lever on the SNG is so soft and offers so little resistance. They also fixed that. Obviously we need the system one. ATB is on. We are in a section limited to 40 track speed, and we did not get a signal yet because it is the track speed. And now let's see what happens if we try to play dumb and pass this red signal. Not going faster than 40. Rolling with, let's say, 20. Past the first of those magnets. We're rolling up to our red signal. Being incapacitated. And flop. System stops us before we can pass the red signal. And CD Radar says, from experience I can confirm that these magnets will not stop the train in front of the buffer. Okay. It says that it works well in the game, you mean? It should work well for speeds up to 40. If you're coming in with more than 40, then it should not be enough to stop you in front of the buffer block or in front of the signal. Obviously we can try to unlock this penalty brake application. Max brake on Grendelen. And then we are free to go again. Let's see, maybe we can sneak past it with less than 10. System lets us start again. We're running with 3. Now we hit the last magnet. And bang. Here we are. we are not allowed to pass this last magnet. Our ATB Snuffle just caught it. Our opname spool that is there in front of the first axle stopped us from passing. Whereas, yeah, maybe I just get out of my train and despawn it. Get myself a new train in the same spot. Maybe close the door. What happened now? Nothing, I just clicked somewhere weird. Cutting it in. Did I already set the reverser? No. Did not even turn on the train. And if we now ask the dispatcher for a path somewhere, and the signal is being switched, hopefully now to yellow. Then we can pass those magnets. Even though it is still yellow 40 on the ATB. And this is what I wanted to talk about today. Why this is so and how it is done. For this we have the presentation. Just find the correct one and the correct spot. And I promised last week, or not actually last week, on Sunday, that we will talk about the different versions, because the ATB family is actually quite a bit confusing with all the abbreviations on all the different versions. And we ran through it on Sunday quite fast, and today we will have a bit more time. So what we talked about on Sunday's video, automatische Treinbeïnvloeding Eerste Generatie, that is the automatic train control first generation. It was developed in the years 1963 to 1970, about after this bad accident in Haren, where a train driver missed a yellow signal and ran into another train, and then this was built by the French company Alstom. And we have seen in last week's video that it is based on pulse code cap signaling in the track circuits, electric circuits that can be coded with frequencies to display different aspects in the cap from 40 yellow, 60, 80, 130 up to a maximum of 140, even the Boutendienst, and that we have a speed control system that not only shows to the driver what they are supposed to do, but the system also controls it. We have looked at the curves and all the different bell signals and so on in last week's video. If we don't comply, we get a penalty brake and a red light to indicate that the penalty brake is on. But that was not the end of the development. In about 1995, there was a second system developed that was then called the Nieuwe Generatie, and from this time on, the ATB from 1970 was called the Eerste Generatie, where as soon as there was a second one, then there was some need to put the Eerste Generatie to the ATB that was there from 1970. And what is different here? It is actually completely different. It does not have to do almost anything with the old system. it is also developed by Alstom, but it does not work with coded track circuits, but we have something like beacons, balises. They don't look like balises yet. This is why I call them data beacons. They are much longer. They are not yellow. They are have a bit of a metal hue to them, and they are placed in the track slightly out of the center so that it is direction sensitive, picked up by a receiver on the train, and it transmits data, just like the balises that we know from ETCS level 1, that we know from GNT, that we know from the sub variants that we have in different countries. We are getting a data telegram from the balises in the track, and based on this telegram the train can react. It's obviously something that needs to be done with a microprocessor to process the data and then translate it into cab signaling that the driver can see. And this is not this nice cab signaling with the different colored lamps, but it is the cab signaling that we are now so familiar with. On the ETCS screens we have our speed clock. We have on the left, like with LZB, a distance display, and we have some more matrix displays that can show numbers and stuff. It is a system that works up to a speed of 200 kilometers per hour. Not that, as far as I know, it has ever been used up to that speed in the Netherlands. And you will have lamps lit up around your speed clock, indicating you what speed you are allowed to go, to what speed you have to slow down, and so on. And in the distance display, just like you know it from LZB especially, you get like a bar indicating how far you still have until you need to be down with your speed to the threshold indicated, also indicated by a number down here. And the control that is connected with this cab signaling controls speed, ceiling speed, target speed, and the target speed control is already done with brake curves. And it was also able to control a release speed for the distance between the last beacon and a signal. Then it's always the same problem. If you passed your last beacon and stop at the red signal, then you need something to make it possible to get a movement authority back into your train, and for that you typically have a release speed where the system does not intervene and allows you to pass the signal after it's switched to green if you don't have an Euro loop or something in your track. And this system, Nieuwe Generatie, is not in the game yet. From what I've seen, it is well in the Train Simulator Classic somewhere. So at some point in time, maybe we get it in Train Sim World 2. Those two systems, one thing maybe needs to be mentioned, that the train equipment of the Nieuwe Generatie was also able to read the track circuits and display the Eerste Generatie cab signaling on the speed clock. So it was, from what you can read, downward compatible. It is not really used so much anymore, or maybe never has been used that much, especially on secondary lines that have not been electrified. This was used, I don't know exactly why this was used there, and well, now it is not longer put into new tracks, because now everything is prepared for using Eurobalises and systems that run on Eurobalises, and as far as not the existing ATB infrastructure is used. But quite early on, those two systems Erste Generatie and the Nieuwe Generatie were put together in this ATBL system that we have already talked about when we talked about the ICE 3M, the multi-system ICE on Köln-Aachen, where we have alongside with our MFA 20 display with the round indicators, this batch of indicators on the right side that really look confusing because it is a mix of Dutch ATB indicators and Belgian TBL indicators, transmission, balise, locomotive, 1+. And those three systems can be processed by ATBL, and strongly or closely related to the ATBL system was the first add-on to the ATB called ATB-M Plus, or also ATB Plus, what was a system that was and is only used on one single line in the Netherlands, as far as I know, to make it possible that trains can run faster than 140 under ATB. And this is done actually in a way, from what I have been able to find out, that you transmit a signal via those Nieuwe Generatie data beacons to upgrade the pulse code that you get for the 140. So that on your train equipment, it runs pretty much on the Erste Generatie stuff. But if you get an additional upgrade signal via those Nieuwe Generatie balises, then your 140 free signal is upgraded to a 160 free signal, and this is why you have an additional lamp for the 140. So between the 14 on yellow and the green is switched on and off by a corresponding signal that the system gets from a Nieuwe Generatie data beacon. Quite complicated, but this is what this ATB Plus system or ATBM Plus system more or less is. I think it is very unlikely that it will ever be used on any other line, but from what I know, it is still in place there and used for running the trains with 160, and the ICE 3M in the game, at least on its display, has this 14 on yellow lamp, from what I can remember being able to run ATBL that also can interpret the ATBM Plus signal. ATB Plus, then ATB Plus Plus, was the next add-on to the ATB, first developed by a group called NetTrain in 2005, and then, for reasons that I did not really look up why, later was done by Alstom and a company called Movares, and they developed in 2008 the Verbeterde Versie system, what is more or less the same system, but this name ATB++ was already taken and protected for NetTrain, so that they had to find a new name, and the new name then was the Verbeterde Versie, the improved version for that. So, and this does now brake curve control that prevents us from running a red light. For that we have those three beacons or balises that we have seen already in the game, and this enables a brake curve control to stop us here. This we will look more in depth on the next slide. But first, let's finish what other versions of the ATB systems exist. I think the first year I found it mentioned was around 2009 by this company NetTrain. Is a system that is called ATB-E for automatische treinbeïnvloeding eenvoudig, what is a simplified version that it is a bit difficult to find sources about that are really reliable, but from what you can read, it is a system that does the speed control without giving you a lot of cap signaling and a lot of bell signals, but just controls your speed, and if you're too fast, it slows you down. Yeah, then there is mentioned a system that is called E for Euro ATBM Plus. What is a system that seems to be emulating this ATB Plus system that allows us to go 160, but no longer in a combination out of track circuits and those data beacons from the Nieuwe Generatie, but running on Euro balises. Also, there is not much that you can find there if this was ever a thing, if it is used anywhere. Can't tell you. So we're getting our data from Euro balises, and the cap signaling is more or less what we had in the ATBM Plus. And then there are different modes developed for the ETCS under the special transmission module mode of operation, where we have seen this in the Luzern-Surcy, where we had the special transmission module for the Eurozub and Eurosignum. That was more or less also a version that emulated on Euro balises the old Zub and Integra Signum systems in Switzerland. And so there is, I don't know exactly since when this has been around, a mode of operation where you can run and emulate Erste Generatie and Verbeterte Versie under ETCS level STM, now under baseline 3 System National. And I've read an article of 2022 that there was also developed a mode of operation to run Nieuwe Generatie under ETCS level STM. How important that actually is, I don't know, but those are the systems and abbreviations, acronyms that I have been able to dig up, and if you put it into some context, then they actually make sense. So see the developing line from the first generation over the new generation, then more or less at the same time the ATBL as a combined one for Netherlands, Belgian terrains, and including the first upgrade to be able to run trains on 160 kilometers per hour, and then the Verbeterde Versie, and then some spin-off versions and the versions that lead over to the ETCS. And ETCS plain vanilla level 1, level 2 is obviously also a thing that can be used at some point, or is already used in the Netherlands, and then eclipsing the ATB completely. Okay, let's see how this Verbeterde Versie actually works. For that, we switch to the Verbeterde Versie. Our problem is that a train running on a track up to a red signal, passing a yellow signal, getting the yellow indicator on the ATB Erste Generatie cap signaling, is allowed at this point to still go 40. So he comes in with whatever speed, then the train is supposed to slow down to 40 and be ready to stop in front of the red signal. So the speed limit actually is at some point here, and then when passing the yellow signal, there is still time to slow down to 40 and then to stop. At this point, obviously, the train must have come to a standstill. The ATB Erste Generatie controls us with plus 5 kilometers, so whatever speed we have, plus 5 kilometers above, and then a little distance behind the signal, the control speed drops, and it is now controlling us to 40 plus 5 equals 45 kilometers per hour. And this is the point where we always got docked, because we still had time to slow down to the 40. Safety system required already a speed of 40 plus 5 and no more, and the system was docking us. And now with today's update Full changelog core removed, negative scoring caused by safety system speed enforcement, so they work as intended. In ATB, from what I've seen, it actually works as intended. We will have to see if this is also true for PCB, ATC and other systems that do stuff like this. And I'm really happy that things like this are still getting fixed without much ado and in a timely manner. Yeah, but you see the problem that we see here. The ATB Erste Generatie is controlling us to 45 beyond the red signal and will never ever do anything even if we pass the red signal with 45. What it doesn't do, it does not control a brake curve that ends with a speed of 0 in front of the signal. So this blue curve is something that we want to control with our system so that we can exclude that the driver is actually passing the red signal. And for this we have the balises or beacons or beacons in the track, and they are put up in a specified distance to the signal. The last one is 3 meters in front of the signal, the second one is 30 meters in front of the signal, and the third one is 120 meters in front of the signal. This layout is enough, from what they say, to stop a train in front of the signal as long as the train is not going faster than 40, what corresponds with the speed that the ATB Erste Generatie is requiring and almost enforcing here. I've read somewhere that there are also some installations that control speeds starting with 80 to slow down. So maybe there are even some places where we have an installation that controls a slowdown from 80. But the typical one is the one that slows us down from 40. With higher speeds, the train will still be stopped, but then it will grind to a halt behind the signal. And if Lofty was here, we could discuss the problem with the overlaps und dem Durchrutschweg. Since they don't use Durchrutschwege and overlaps apparently in the Netherlands, it is quite important to make sure that the train does not pass the red signal and stops before, and this is not stopped behind. Well, we know that from German system with the 2000 Hertz magnet is not a system that can prevent the train from running the red signal, but stops the train within the overlap. But here the system is actually supposed to stop the train before it even passes the red signal. This is what they look like in the game. We have seen them before. And those beacons are able to send two different frequencies, so signals on two different frequencies. And those three beacons actually send three different stop signals, so that the train passing a beacon sending a stop signal at the same time also knows at which beacon it is. So those three beacons have their unique stop signal. They can also send clear signals. We will see for what we need the clear signal, but here we don't have three different clear signals. This is one and the same. And in case the signal is red, then those beacons are set to send their respective three stop frequencies. And as soon as the train picks up this stop signal from the third balise, the one furthest away from the signal, then the train equipment will calculate a brake curve. A Remkurve, a brake curve is calculated, and then the train is controlled even between the two balises, is controlled to a brake curve. Not so much unlike the PCB 90 version, where the train is also controlled between the 1000 Hertz influencing up to the point where it is supposed to be at the 80 in PZB-O. It is not like train has to slow down until to a certain speed, but we have a constant control of the brake curve, and if we are exceeding this brake curve that is calculated and forced on the train equipment, we get the penalty brake, and this can happen even between those two balises. Balises are here so that the train knows we are here. We have 120 meters to the signal. We have to calculate our brake curve, and if we are faster than the brake curve, then we have to yank in the brakes with a penalty brake. And the second signal then tells the train, okay, now I have 30 meters left. Now we are here, and then react. This brake curve ends at a speed of 10 kilometers per hour, what is called the Freilatsnelheid, what translate word by word into release speed. And this is something that we have seen with a lot of balise-based safety systems, that if we cannot get a continuous signal in the train, then we need to be able to allow the train to go with a slow speed to the next point where the train can pick up a signal. So in PZB terms, if you look into Germany, then the 40 kilometers per hour, that the 500 hertz after you traveled 153 meters allows you to go is the release speed that the system allows you here. 30 for PZBM and 20 for PZB-U. Automod deny. Don't want any paid viewers. Yes. And in ETCS you have it as a release speed predefined in your program, also whatever you want to have, 20, 30, 40. And here you have 10, what is a really slow release speed, what corresponds with the fact that we don't have any protected overlap behind the signal. So it is really low. And if the train hits the third balise, the one 3 meters in front of the signal, with any speed at all, then it will be stopped. So with the last one, this is the no nonsense magnet. Here you can't have any speed anymore, and if you hit this balise with any speed at all, it will stop you, so that you don't pass the red signal and don't run beyond. Even and if this works properly, then you don't need overlaps, then you don't need Durchrutschwege to make it actually safe enough. If the train is running faster than 40, obviously, then it runs into the non-existing overlap, but this is a thing that the ATB Erste Generatie should actually prevent you from being too fast and slow you down to 40 properly, at least in theory. So, what happens if the signal's clear? Then also the cap signal might clear actually here 140 in a situation where we are on the open track maybe. Then even if the balises would still send a stop signal, the system would not stop us anymore, because that only works if we are receiving a yellow coded cap signal from the ATB Erste Generatie. So in this case, when the signal is clear and also the cap signal is clear away from the single yellow, from the 40 yellow, then those balises won't stop us anymore. Train can pick up what it wants from those balises. There will be no brake curve, no penalty brake anymore. So switching the signal that comes through the track circuit is enough to make the train able to pass and clear this section here again. But what do we do in situations where we have a limit to 40 regardless of the setting of our signals, if we have a line speed of 40, what we have a lot in the stations that are in the DLCs here, then we, even if the signals are green and have a high green aspect, we are not getting a better aspect than the yellow here. And if we have the yellow, then the train will react to the stop frequencies on the balises. And that's not good, because we want to have the train pass this section. So those balises need to be set to a clear frequency, and then the train can pass it even though it is running under a yellow ATB Erste Generatie code. What happens if the train has stopped somewhere here? Because the signal was red, then it switched to green. Now the balises are sending a clear. Thing is, what we always have with a non-continuous train control, then the train actually has to sneak up to the next balise with the speed that is allowed to him by the system. What will be the release speed here between the second but last and the last balise? Pick up the clear signal here, and as soon as the system picks up the clear signal from this balise, then the train can accelerate again and clear this section. And because that is sometimes a thing that might be a bit cumbersome to have trains crawling around with 10 kilometers per hour, the system also has the possibility that you have a continuous loop in this track where the train actually can stop in front of the signal, so that the train at any point where it is can get this clear signal across the loop, across the release loop, and then the train can accelerate and does not need to sneak up to the next balise. This is where you sometimes find this release loop, and this makes sense in situations where the cap signal aspect from the ATB Erste Generatie cannot improve beyond the yellow, because you have a line speed of 40, like in many station areas. That is more or less the system here, intended to make sure that the trains do not pass the red signal. Works well if the train is already down to 40 at this point. And this is, from what I've seen, simulated and implemented nicely in the game. It seems to work just as one expects. It is a system that totally works in a way that the driver does not see that the system is active and that the system is doing anything, but it controls the driver from behind the curtains. And like someone wrote on their website discussing this system, that this is not really a problem, because the driver has a really great instrument to recognize when they are supposed to run a red signal, and that is the window, because still the driver can see the signal, obviously. And if for whatever reason they are not paying attention, then the system will stop him, hopefully from running the red signal. Yes. Yes. In RAM. In RAM. Yes. Okay. And it's obviously a system that needs microprocessors on the train, because calculating brake curve is something that is usually done by microprocessors. And you get an impulse from the track so that the train and the system knows where they are, and the rest runs in the train, and the train controls the speed that is calculated in this brake curve calculation process. After talking about the Verbeterde Versie, I want to talk about the ATB signals, because there is no place actually, what happened now, where to put them properly. We don't see them a lot in the game, we don't see them a lot in real life, because ATB is almost everywhere, so we are not really entering an ATB section, even in the yards. The track circuits are coded most of the time. So we only see sometimes this code signal that is on this slide here when we are going from one section into the other. But the signals are there and they are nice and they need to be discussed. So this is our piece of track, and it does not have track circuits everywhere, but only a part of it is secured with track circuits and ATB. And if the train is getting closer to a section of track that is secured with ATB, then the driver gets warned about this fact by a very unique signal. This one, a diamond with a diamond inside, 2 yellow triangles, 2 blue triangles, and 2 white dots. And this is an ATB Naderingsbord, an ATB advanced board that warns the driver that they are closing in on the begin of a section with ATB. Has a number. Number is always the number from the Regeling Spoorverkeer, so you can look it up. The next board that the driver would see at this point is that one, diamond, yellow or orange with ATB, and that is called the ATB Inschakelbord, the switch on board. Inschakelen is switching on, and that means that from here the ATB system on your train will switch on and will expect to get cab signals from the coded track circuits that they are passing over. And from what I have read, in this Inschakelsektie, the section where the system is switched on, don't exactly know what code is there in the track circuit or whatever, how we can tell the system on the train to switch on, if it is enough to receive any code or whatever. And then we have to push as a driver the Attentie button. That is the one from the Koploper. The SNG has a button on its display. We have not checked what the Vectron uses for those buttons, if it is using the PZB buttons or if we have something on our touch screen or the buttons around the screen. We will have to look into this. If we fail to push this Attentie button, then we will get a penalty break, because then the switching on does not really work. It's not in the game as far as I can see, because it is something that in real life does not happen awfully lot, because the trains are typically in ATB territory and don't leave ATB territory. This code sign is a sign that you can find in the game. It is called the ATB code board, and it tells you that from this point on you should get pulse codes from the track circuits that translate into cab signals. So starting here, you're getting your cab signals, and then you run through your ATB controlled area, and this is also used for transitioning between ATB sections, whereas I'm not entirely sure what qualifies as an ATB section, but you can find those code boards when sometimes at junctions lines are coming in, or at the Haren yard when you're driving out into the open line. Then you can see those boards. Those are probably for switching between different sections. If not coming from the yard, is actually something where you are switching on your ATB, but I have not found a section in the yard where there would be an ATB or something else. At least here tells you after that code board you should expect pulse codes that translate to cab signals. At some point then the ATB section is over. You get the ATB crossed out with a strepen. It's the Uitschakelbord, switch off board, and after that the ATB cab signaling ends. I don't know if then there is one more track circuit that sends you the 75 pulses code that switches off your system automatically, or whether you have to switch it off by pushing the Buitendienst button. At any rate, you're not getting any cap signals anymore. Then in the rules there is one more funny signal at this point. It is an arrow built or out of white lights on this black board, and this is called an ATB Codewisselsein, and that is a code change signal. And if you read in the rules what it is for, it indicates a point where the cap signal is switching in a way that now the cap signal requires you to slow down. So we wonder, why have we never seen this signal? Because we ran into many sections where we got a cap signal that required us to slow down. This is because typically we don't need it, because in place of this signal we have a proper signal, like a dwarf signal or a high signal, or a board like a snelheidsboard or a snelheidsverminderingsboard typically. So this is why we don't need this. It is actually something that can only be understood if you look at it historically. And when ATB was first introduced, then sometimes you ran into the problem that your signals were not in the proper position in relation to your track circuits to use it properly. So for example, here you're coming with your train, here you get a high green, and at this point it switches to a yellow. And to indicate this point where it can switch to a yellow, you can get this signal here. Because for whatever reason your signal a position where the track circuit does not really fit to it, where the track circuit ends a couple of meters behind the signal, or the signal is too close to the next signal that then is the red signal. So you need enough time for the engineer, for the driver, to react to the changing cap signals and slow down. And in those situations, they are actually not too frequent. There can be, or used to be, those code whistle signs that indicated that here at this point you can get a restricting cap signal even though you have not reached the location of the signal that corresponds to this cap signal aspect. If everything is good and the signal is green, then this signal here would be off, not indicating an arrow, but as soon as it switches to yellow, typically also connected with a distance signal, then you get the indication that it is nothing wrong with your ATB system, but you just passed this point where it switched earlier than when passing the signal. Don't know if they are still in use, but it's in the book, and when discussing the ATB signs, I did not want to leave it away, because it's always interesting to talk about the anomalies, and maybe sometimes we get a historic route and then we need to know how to treat this sign. Alright, that is already the stuff for Sunday, when we are wrapping up the remaining signals, mileage, station, and those funny L and H and G and X and Knipper X signals that we will do on Sunday. For today, I think it is enough with the presentation. And we can go back to train driving a bit. Donald Diplomat says, I thought the presentation will take forever, but it flew by so fast. Well, I don't know if that is nice to hear, but As long as you did not get bored. It's fine. Let's check out the other Vectron service. If it is also a problem with the safety system scoring system here. And where there are our buttons on the Vectron. For on Grendelen, for example. Level 2214. How long have you been playing Train Sim World for? That a long time, actually. Playing Train Sim World. It's always been like unwinding, decompressing after a long day. So, master key is on. I'm not touching the buttons, actually. I'm switching them to normal, like this. Let's see. Actually, I think that the buttons move here. Let's see if anything can be done if we activate it on the rear cap as well. So where did I end up now? In the second man seat. That is sometimes a bit weird. Why did I end up in the second man seat now? Now I'm back in my spot. Now it is cut out. Now it is cut in.
Zugbeeinflussung.
Okay, that seems to work properly, but we still have to switch to the Dodge system. Panto is down. We should be able to switch to the Dodge system. No, only 1.5. Here we are. Panto. Ah, now we can. It was still crossed out. Now we can. Brakes cut in. Aufgesperrt, gelöst, angelegt. Let's see if we actually release. And they release. Nice. Juniper says, thank you so much. This was a great explanation. Thank you so much for this feedback. Relatable, but I have only 600 hours of playtimes across Train Sim World 3, 4, and 5, says Donut Diplomat. Alright. Well, I started with Train Sim World 2. CD Race is interesting. I'm currently trying to disable the penalty brake on the Vectron, and I really don't know how to do it. So where is the button for the ungrendeling? I don't know. I haven't found a solution. It has a Bautendienst, and it has a Attentie. Maybe it's the 7. This is where the ungrendeling would be. Maybe it only lights up for ungrendeling if there is actually a penalty brake. You can change the language to Dutch. Well, here we have it already in Dutch. How long is the train, by the way? Not really long. Well, let's just check it out. Let's see that we still get a penalty brake before it switches to something better. Hauptleitungsdruck auf Schnellbremsungsniveau. That is okay. Then usually we have to get the full brakes on, but not on Schnellbremsung. Rem-Kriterium. And now we had... we would need an on-grendelen button.
Zugbeeinflussung. Zugbeeinflussung. Zugbeeinflussung.
Usually I would use the release if I were the system designer.
Zugbeeinflussung.
D-Mod says, hey Tiger, nice to see you. I tried all the buttons and numbers. All the buttons and numbers, else it'd be emergency stop. Maybe there's a key shortcut for it. Well, the on-grendelen button does not have a key shortcut as far as I know. Maybe it has a timer? No, it doesn't have a timer. Helligkeit brauchen wir nicht. Switching it off does not fix it. Nederlands. HL druk op SR niveau. Rem aangezet. Well. This is a pickle. Well, I will definitely ask the ambassadors. If they have any solution for it. But I will do this after the stream. For now, let's just restart. And we can think about this until Sunday, and until then maybe we have a solution how to unlock the brake system after an ATB penalty brake on the Vectron. So just let's see if we can get it on again. Well, no, we just already saw that there is the same problem with the scoring system. Let's drive a bit with the sprinter and check out what the brake and throttle lever work how it feels now that it is changed from its sensitivity. Where is it? Yes, NG. One of the Assen services. Groningen to Assen. And let's look. They also updated the wet weather optics. So let's have custom weather. Light clouds, but everything wet. No precipitation. Let's see what that looks like. Maybe someone will upload a video on how to do it. Well, we need some button, and it's interesting that we have an Attentie and a Bautendienst button, but not an On-Grendelen button. So this is what it looks like with wet landscape now. Can't really remember what it looked like before, but it definitely looks nice. Maybe we turn the safety systems on. And do we already know what ABC is now that we do not know? But I think we have similar ABC buttons on older German cabs. Or like something like on the Talent 2. Get to look around a bit. One is yellow and one is red and the others are yellow. So, de werksein is groen. So we can pass it with 40. Only one train set. We stop at Groningen Europapark. I still have to see if they did anything about the Knipper animation. Because City Radar, you were totally right. There are a lot of flashing numerals, but the animation is so weird that you don't really see that they are flashing. And Receipt Radar says, yesterday I took the dog from the shelter for a walk. People happy. Oh yeah, that is a good thing to do. Dogs are so great. Yes, so the combined power brake handle on the Sprinter New Generation definitely feels less flimsy now. I have to draw up to the board with the number 4 because we have 3 cars in the train. Lidl. Groningen Europapark. Train for Assen. Dreckseinlicht. What do you think of the sounds? I like the sounds, but I have always to caution that I am quite easily happy with the sounds. I'm not a purist when it comes to sounds. So maybe we get a speed limit when approaching Assen or Haren. I think Haren, not maybe when we're approaching Assen, so that we can see that we're no longer getting docked. Can get 120 here, if I'm not mistaken. Even 130. Yes, getting slowed down to 60. So now braking with the ramp criterion, and you can see we're getting still full points. So this seems to be fixed successfully. A question I still have is why no more widespread implementation of ATB. Nieuwe Generatie. That is actually a good question. As always, most probably because putting a new system where an old system already existed is expensive. So you can read that the new generation ATB was more or less implemented on tracks where the Erste Generatie system was not implemented yet, and then replacing the existing ATB Erste Generatie with the Nieuwe Generatie was probably not deemed an economical thing to do, and afterwards it was more or less overtaken by more advanced systems from the ETCS variety. But that's stuff where I can only guess. But from what I have read and heard, it is still used on some secondary lines. Until those get updated to ETCS, probably. So that was Haren. We're still in the 130 zone. So why those weird steps of 60, 80, 130 and 140? From what I have read, this is because there were some, or many lines had a highest authorized speed of 130 and others had a highest speed of 140. And 60 and 80 were typical speed limits for the switches. In Juniper says, I know there are some small sections on mainline where there is no ETCS, but they also still support ATB Erste Generatie, so I'm not sure what system is used by the SNG or other trains. From what you can read, ATB Nieuwe Generatie is almost exclusively a thing for diesel EMUs on not electrified lines. But I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe because those were the lines that were not yet fitted with ATB Erste Generatie. So they needed some sort of safety system. So Don Diplomat says, just looked it up and mainly it's the ATB, but the ETCS system can be used, but it's just not used yet because there's too little ETCS right now in the Netherlands. Alright. Yeah, I guess it is like in any other country as well, as long as there is a working Class B system. Railway operators will be reluctant to introduce a new system like ETCS, where there is little or no safety system. Then you will have much more ETCS implementations from new. It's okay. Yeah, and then there is SJ. Yeah, but look at Poland, for example. The SHP system is a rather rudimentary safety system, and so it makes sense to implement a lot of ETCS. In Germany we have this super old and often updated mix from PZB, a little GNT, where it's essentially ZUP with balises. Now more and more ETCS of different kinds. LZB still. And obviously no one can update all this to a new system like ETCS in one go. Always need to wait until you have a new fancy high-speed track to do that, or if your infrastructure is so worn that you need to more or less build it anew, and then you can put in new stuff. In Czechia we have Mirel, and since 2025 ETCS, yes. So Mirel, I don't really know how much protection that actually provides. Maybe at some point I will make a stream about Mirel, even if there is no Mirel implementation in the game yet. On this Vectron we don't have the Mirel pad, by the way. On the first version of the Vectron, the silver one, the railpool one, that one has the Mirel driver machine interface, or whatever you might want to call it. Slowing down to 60. And not getting docked for speeding is a nice experience. Yes, since we are going back to Groningen on this train, we are switching on the left track here to do a short turn. Now I wonder if ETCS combined with AFB can also brake the train itself according to the curve like as we... I think so. I think so. I don't know either. There's too little about information about it online. Yeah. If Ronnie is still here, he could tell us. But I am quite sure that AFB interlocks with ETCS. I love this station here in Assen. Looks really cozy. This is a yellow sequence that we get here when entering our platform. Sometimes this seems to be a thing. Donor Diplomat looked it up. We're using ETCS level 2 or 3, and the train is equipped with AFB that's probably properly integrated with ETCS. Then yes, the train can brake itself along the braking curve, much like in ETCS level 1. Then the sentence ends. Oh, this is actually... oh, can still go into emergency. Automatic braking is less common unless supported by additional train automatic functions. Yeah, ETCS level 3, I think we have to wait a bit for that. Until we get moving blocks and virtual couplings and whatever there might be. Ah, he accidentally... this is why the sentence was cut off. Well, guys, I think I will leave it at this for a Thursday night stream. Many things we can be happy about. The Vectron now understands ATB, even if we are not sure how to ontgrendel the emergency brake. And we are not longer getting docked for driving according to the safety system requirements. And Tiger is a Dovetail ambassador since yesterday. And I hope the rest of the world will get better soon as well. Guys, take care. Be nice to each other. Have a nice Friday and Saturday, and on Sunday night we will be back for, I think, for now the last stream in the Dutch row and line and series about especially those charming signals like the L sign, the H sign, the G sign, the X sign, and the flicker X. Have a nice rest of the weekend. Yeah, have a nice beginning of the weekend until we meet again on Sunday night. Take care. Bye bye.